Full disclosure, news and commentary number, 15. Ah, whew. Not too sharp on it yet this morning. It's early. It's in the 4 o'clocks. I got up at 2:45. I beat my alarm awake. That's always a good time when you beat your alarm awake. I get kind of happy about it. My alarm goes off at 3 in the morning, though. So to beat my alarm awake is really, bruh. But it's great because I get a chance to do everything that I want to do and get a workout in and all that stuff. Okay, we're going to jump into news real quick. Why am I doing this on Monday morning early instead of Tuesday? The con of doing it on Monday instead of Tuesday is a bunch of wrestling news, especially like show reports from different groups haven't come in yet. So chances are I'll do a follow-up. Chances are I'm going to have to do a follow-up anyway. My commentary is going to be sort of a general thing addressing people's responses to a lot of the dramatic events happening in Georgia wrestling right now. And basically how fucking dumb it is that people are complaining or acting like they're above the fray of wrestling drama. Pointing out hypocrisies in wrestling is one of my favorite things. So I'm going to go ahead and do that today in our commentary. So that's something to look forward to. Let's get to the news. What shows are going to be out soon? The ones that are reporting in are Spinebuster on July 24th and IWE Pro Wrestling Night of Champions. I'm sure there are others, and I'm sure those people will get their announcements in. You should, gwhnewsandnotes.blogspot.com, get your announcements in. Shows that happened this weekend that we know about. I was told by somebody I trust, Anarchy had a great show, and they drew about 100. WrestleAmerica drew 200, and Larry was at their show. And that show, I think he described it best, seemed like a mixed bag. A lot of crazy stuff happened. Pinning the production person, I can't lie, it's one of my favorite things. And of course, Simon Sermon proving once again he knows best with a great spot that he did in elevating a young man. Remember that thing way back when with Tracer X? Apparently Simon told me that actually he and Tracer had a good talk soon after that happened, and that everything is cool now. Good. Hopefully Tracer X learns, because now Simon's putting over somebody else and making them look great. Southern Honor with a couple of news items. One, they drew 461, possibly more than that. Yay for them. They had a great show. Again, people when Southern Honor drew 1,000 and then stumbled, which I highlighted in an article and videos that I made, people were quick to come to me and go like, see, your thing about Dylan could be Booker of the Year is absolute crap. What about now? We still have a few months till the end of the year, folks. It'll be interesting to see who finishes strong. Southern Honor also saying that in 47 seconds, holy moly, they sold their entire first row for their next show. Not too shabby. Rest in peace, please, to Joe Rowland, known as Paw, who was a cameraman at Wildside. Rick Michaels, godfather, and a guy that is one of these rare birds in wrestling nobody seems to have anything bad to say about. So, rest in peace, man. Side note to that story, Rick did indeed show up to the Anarchy show and was in good spirits, right? Wrestling, for a lot of us, is our sort of sanctuary and our temple. And Rick kind of came into that Anarchy show from all accounts and it was a good atmosphere. I think Anarchy needed that. They needed a good atmosphere, and they need things to get better and better and better. And so it goes. I noticed also that soon number 4 wrestler in our top 10, Sal Renaro, is going to be at Southern Fried. So the sort of connection between Anarchy and Southern Fried continues. We're going to have other news items about Southern Fried later on. They're part of this growing drama going on. But I want to talk about GPW. They had a show this weekend. Not sure what they drew. I'm sure we'll find out soon. Woody was running that show, though, because Daryl Morris could not be there. Also, Logan Chase is out. He officially announced that he's not going to have anything to do with GPW anymore. And people were already clamoring for his services. Was it a publicity stunt that people are offering to have him on their show? I don't think so. I think it's a combination of, if Gary Lamb's doing something, it's about publicity, no doubt. But I think he and others want Logan Chase as a part of their show. Good for Logan Chase. Who would have thought that this many people would be clamoring for a manager to be on their shows? Hopefully that's a sign that the manager thing is on the upswing. So is Woody back at GPW? Some people say definitively yes. Other people say definitively no. And there's people that I trust on both sides of that. And then Woody apparently was kind of elusive with the answer to that question, which would tend to make you think that the answer is yes. Or, as they say on Facebook and relationship statuses, it's complicated. Guess we're going to have to wait and see how that one plays out. Georgia World Class Wrestling, that Chris Nelms is heavily involved with, is going to be running in Loganville on September 21st. Ooh. Southern Fried has apparently run there twice, once under Charles and once under David Manders. And Chris Nelms being heavily involved with that and booking people such as Murder One / Blacklist Uno, Adrian Armour, Nick. Yeah. So they're doing their thing there. The response from David Manders was to remove Chris Nelms' video about him being inducted into the Hall of Fame and sort of try to erase his history, which created an immediate backlash. It's safe to say early on that it was a terrible move, that it's a bad look, right? Speaking of potentially bad looks, you had the whole thing with Gary Lamb versus Murder, Gunner versus Murder. Gunner put out a video about the Murder situation. Jeff G wrote an article in response to Murder releasing private correspondence talking about Gunner's booking. I'm going to talk more about 60 Minute Broadway in my next Be Kind review that's coming out soon. I'm going to review 60 Minute Broadway again. I'm going to review a couple of different podcasts that I haven't taken a look at before. And I'm going to review Rob Rod's thing on the Scenic City. Lots of good stuff has come out lately, so I want to try to stay on top of things as much as possible. You'll notice that I've been releasing many more videos, and part of that is more and more people are watching, more and more people are subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would appreciate it. If you haven't taken a look at the Patreon and all the rest of that stuff, please do so. Lots of people are asking to friend me on Facebook and following me on Twitter and all this kind of stuff, and I greatly appreciate it. But what's my long and short take of the dramatic stuff that's going on? At the end of the day, with Jeff G and Gary Lamb and Gunner and Murder, and by the way, Josh Wheeler is going to be on Tipping Point after months and maybe years of saying he would never be on if I was hosting it and that kind of thing. And now he's asking to be on the show. So Tuesday, Josh Wheeler is calling into Tipping Point. We'll see what goes down. What is this about? It seems like AWE is going on kind of a publicity PR offensive. And What else are you supposed to fucking do when you have a promotion? Promotion, right? You got to get out there. AWE asked me way back when to not talk about them, so I didn't. That didn't seem to do them any favors. Yeah, you got to be in the mix. This is what drama is all about. This is what pro wrestling is all about. Yeah. The long and short of it is, I think at the end of the day, when you have Gary Lamb, Jeff G, I think everybody ended up looking good in some way, shape, or form. I'm half Japanese, so the notion of people saving face is not a bad thing to me. I don't think everything's as simple as this guy got a W and this guy got an L. I don't think it needs to be that way all of the time. That's funny coming from me, that when I get mad at something, you see me on here just like crushing my enemies and see them driven before me and hear the lamentations of the women. Yeah, of course, that's a big part of competition and big part of performance and promotions running against each other. But sometimes it can shake out where everybody gets a win. Now, what those wins mean long term is a different thing altogether. My early take on like the David Manders sort of like knee-jerk reaction against Chris Nelms is that it's going to be bad long term. I don't know how you put a guy in your Hall of Fame, right? And then less than a month and a half later, you dispel him, right? Is it true that Chris Nelms kind of did all of this stuff after denying he was going to do it? I don't know. I suspect yes. Is the reaction of trying to erase him from your history a childish one? Undoubtedly. David Manders is a very direct guy most of the time. Like I said, whenever I stumble across his videos and he's talking about me, it's always this kind of rah rally, speak to your base stuff, and incredibly demeaning. And the language he uses talking about me when he thinks I'm not listening is incredibly brutal. But it is what it is. You'll notice my reaction to it is more like, it's hilarious. It's fucking hilarious that I can have space in his head. God knows I have space in just about everybody's head at one point or another. It's just the nature of the beast of what I'm doing. And that brings us to our commentary. We're already going to jump into it. This notion that people are above the fray in pro fucking wrestling. I've seen everybody from like Velvet Hall going like, oh, when I look at wrestling now, boy, am I glad I'm not involved in that shit. And when I see Drew Blood say like, oh yeah, I looked at Facebook for the first time in a long time and oh my God, this shit that's going on in wrestling right now, fuck, makes me glad I'm not in it. God, I'm so fucking above it. To Jonathan Feltner, to Kendall Wallace, a lot of people sort of implying that wrestling, oh, this drama, we're so fucking above it. What the fuck are these guys talking about? Velvet Jones, who used to get into like fucking race war shit with AJ Steele and Murder, and where they were firing shots across the bow constantly. Omar's coming, but nobody else is. Remember that shit? What the fuck? And anybody who's involved with Anarchy / Wild Side, who claims that they're above some kind of drama, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about either. And then someone like Drew Blood, who fucking mixes it up with Gary Lamb and goes back and forth, and Gary Lamb says, well, I guess I'm making a name for you, and Drew Blood keeps fucking poking the stick at Gary Lamb. Yeah. It's fucking pro wrestling. It was a fucking reality show before there was a reality show. And just like reality shows, the shit's fake, but we all pretend it's fucking real. And the bickering back and forth tells you that the people care emotionally about what's going on. And all that petty fucking drag queen backstage round shit is a big fucking part of it. And anyone who pretends that it's not is an asshole and a liar. Do people get in contact with me in private in order to improve their own position with me, or to start degrading the position of somebody else? Yes. Of course they do. That's what people do with media, right? That's what people do with whoever's got the loudest voice. You want them to be your advocate, your, as I've been described many times, a weapon, right? People wanting me to be a weapon for them, or against this person, or against this group, or for this cause, or against this cause, right? That's what fucking pro wrestling is. Here's things that I hear about pro wrestling all the time. And I want to sort of address them because they've always sort of been a bugaboo with me. And it's my fucking channel, so I'm going to talk about what I want. I always hear pro wrestling described as when somebody gets hurt or somebody shoots on somebody else and injures them or attempts to injure them. A thing I always hate that fucking pro wrestling, just like ties in because I hate when pro wrestling people act like they're above the fucking drama when they fucking love the drama and they've all been involved in the drama. And here's the thing, if you're not involved with drama, if you don't have any enemies or you don't have any people that you've had conflicts with in pro wrestling, you're fucking doing it wrong, fool. That's first of all. Have you ever been involved in a sport? Did you ever have rivals in those sports? And on the face of it, on the surface of it, sports rivalries are fucking silly, aren't they? I'm wearing a different uniform than you're wearing, especially on the pro level. Yeah, I'm fucking Jacksonville Jaguar. Are you really? No, you probably grew up in fucking another town. You went to college in a whole different place, and then you happen to be playing for this team because they're paying you and all that kind of shit. You have no fucking true loyalty. But we have to pretend that these teams are tribes, true tribes, and not just mercenary groups, right? And isn't that what we want out of pro wrestling? That we want David Manders to be an advocate for Southern Fried. And for him, that thing should appear that it is the center of his world. That builds the emotional chips that get pushed onto the table during shows. That the crowds do matter because that's scoreboard, right? You hear me say these things all the time. So is there going to be drama? Of course there's going to be fucking drama. Right? I'll say this. Do I think David Manders should be pushing Chris Nelms out of the fucking history of Southern Fried? No. But do I understand the instinct? Absolutely. Does fucking Southern Fried obviously mean something to David Manders for whatever reason? Absolutely. So I get it. Right? Why is Eric Nelson throwing the PCW title in the trash at his show? In front of an audience that has no idea who the fuck I am, though they know who the fuck I am now, don't they? Yeah. He's doing that to stab at me, right? Trying to get to me emotionally. Why is C. Nick take Matt Griffin's words so harshly to the point where he's fucking going after Matt Griffin on a sort of personal / professional level, and Matt Griffin is firing back because we all care about who we are and our own egos and what we do and our place in the wrestling world, which means it matters. So all you people who are acting like you're above the fray, go fuck yourself with a fucking rusty broomstick. I guess you can't really have a rusty. I guess if it was a metal broom. What the fuck ever. Yeah. I hear wrestling too described as, well, it's not ballet whenever somebody gets hurt. Especially gets hurt in a stupid fucking way that they shouldn't be getting hurt. Well, it's not ballet. That's our dismissive thing to say. Ballet dancers are fucking athletes. First of all, the level of discipline and precision required in ballet is a fuck ton more than most pro wrestling matches. And by the way, the best, most elevated pro wrestling matches that work at the highest level and as a physical performance are getting close to the level of top-level ballet. So when you say pro wrestling is not ballet, I'm supposed to hear, that it's not some kind of pussy, wimpy thing like ballet. That's not true at all. Ballet is not fucking pussy, wimpy shit. In fact, when it's a pro wrestling person saying, well, it's not ballet, you know what I take that as? Yeah, it hasn't reached the level of physical training and discipline that ballet has. Not yet, and self-sacrifice. Watch Black Swan, motherfuckers. Or, something else ballet has that pro wrestling tends not to have? a respect for tradition. Hear me, understand. Pro wrestling has no respect for its traditions and histories. You hear that said often, but I'm going to put this in a finite example. Forgive the bit of history lesson. But I think a lot of people in the pro wrestling business need a history lesson. How did pro wrestling start? In the carnivals. As a fucking yet another attraction on the side. As a money hustle. You know, I hear a lot of people talking about like, oh, I hate this word fake with pro wrestling. I hate this word fake. That's another one of the many people who are above the fray, people who say pro wrestling is not ballet, and then people who say like, I hate the word fake to describe pro wrestling. It's not fair. Pro wrestling should not only be okay with the word fake, we should embrace the word fake. Because maybe if we embraced the word fake, we would be better at this shit and the audiences would be even bigger for this shit. Am I crazy? Have you ever heard that before? Of course you haven't. I am the innovative thinker. Not the only one, but I am certainly one. Bear with me. Pro wrestling history. Carnivals back in the day were about taking people's money. The term mark for a fan comes from the carnivals. When they would see a pigeon, aka a sucker, they'd mark him. So all the other people at the carnival would see that this guy's a sucker and let's take his money. One of the ways that you take a mark's money is this. You would have somebody in a ring, usually not with ropes, usually a flat surface. That's neither here nor there. And they would do these cons where they would go, if you put up $1, you can win 10 if you can stay in the ring for a minute with fucking Samson or whatever, some exotic guy. And of course you want it to be a bit of a show and you want it to be exotic. So Samson or whomever, that's just my example, would have a colorful, elaborate costume and often be from somewhere else, in order to seem like, oh, he's this fighter from somewhere else. Sound familiar? That's fucking pro wrestling, fools. The costume, the pageantry, in order to attract somebody's attention so you can make money. That is a tradition that remains. Interesting, no? And the game was, give me $1. If you can last with me, you'll win $10. Now, if you're corn-fed Jed and this traveling carnival comes into town and you see this sort of scary looking guy and you're in front of an audience, you don't want to embarrass yourself, right? Keep in mind that the world before was a different place. Nowadays, people can't whore themselves fast enough for attention, right? Yours included. Yeah, I'm not above the fray, by the way. So you would need a plant in the audience. Somebody who was working in conjunction with Samson, but was appearing that he was an opponent. I put up my money. He'd get up there. And how would he do against Samson? Well, surely Samson would crush this yokel and throw him out right away, wouldn't he? No. Because you don't make money that way. So Samson would string it along. Him and this guy would work together. Hence, it's a work. Holy shit. They would work together, make it look good, but Samson would indeed expel this guy with a great deal of effort and barely do it. What would all the marks do then? Take my money. Love that phrase nowadays, right? Take my money. Oh shit. Let me get up there. I could whip old Samson. This little man almost did it. Shit, I can whip old Samson. Take my money. Here's the problem. You want to take as many people's money as possible, do you not? And Samson obviously is what we would call nowadays a shooter, right? He's a legit fighter. Nowadays, you could never run this con, right? Because if you have people from the audience come up and challenge, holy shit, what kind of fucking mixed martial art trained guy could you possibly get coming up to the platform? Fuck all that shit. I'm not gonna bring some fucking dork up here and try to take his money, and then all of a sudden he's fucking choking me out, or fucking me Google Plata, or God knows what the fuck these guys would whip out. I take Krav Maga in my fucking spare time when I'm not on the computer. Like, fuck that shit. They would never be able to do it nowadays. But back in the day, you could kind of rely on people having a certain amount of physical acumen, since people back in the day were more physically involved with work and stuff like that. But as far as skilled fighters, they were in much shorter supply. Let's just say that. So Samson, manages to get some people out of there, but that show's pretty boring, right? After a while, especially once people start catching on. Oh, fuck, man. Like, I don't think anyone's going to beat Samson. So how do you entertain when you're throwing these people out where your skill level is much higher? Maybe you use more exotic moves. Maybe you pick up somebody if you're physically more powerful than them, and pick them up and twirl them around a little in a airplane spin, say, before you toss them out. Maybe this is the birth of the exotic sounding move in order to entertain a crowd primarily. Why do I bring this shit up about pro wrestling? One, I think there's a lot of people who are involved in wrestling that maybe have a cursory understanding of how pro wrestling started, but don't really understand it. So fast forward, and pro wrestling is around, and it ebbs and it flows. And when the gig is up, right? When it's Gotch versus Hackenschmidt, and was it real, or was it a shoot, or was it work, or did somebody send somebody to injure Hackenschmidt beforehand? By the way, I have two of my favorite books on my shelf are the Frank Gotch book. Do I have them right available? Fuck, I'm coming to get them. Holy balls, I had them right where I could see them on my bookshelf here in my living room. Was that a work? Did I set this up? We'll never know, right? Gotch, an American Hero, great study of the early days of pro wrestling, and actually written in an entertaining way by good old Mike Chapman, who, he's fucking good about writing. However, some of his shit is fucking boring, as dull as fucking dishwater. But Gotch, an American Hero, and then here's something that somebody got me way back when. Or no, maybe I found it at a used bookstore. It's fucking George Hackenschmidt with 70 photographs sort of describing different pro wrestling moves and shit. Right? Does it get more legitimate than these two guys? It didn't. But they still fucking worked people to an extent. To what extent, we'll probably never really know. But the idea of taking people's money, working together for a common cause, building up drama, and then using the exotic and the interesting, from the kind of moves you use to what you wore to what you said. All of this is pro wrestling. When Muhammad Ali cribbed from pro wrestling, most likely Freddie Blassie, whom he shared a radio show with, and then he heard Fred Blassie promoting a fucking thing in California, and he said, holy shit, that guy made me want to see this fucking match no matter what. And he took that in his own brilliant mind and concocted this image. Would you have been there in the 70s going like, oh, this drama, Muhammad Ali, I'm so above it? Or would you have picked a side, got excited, and got to experience all of it? I would hope that it's the latter. The only thing I worry about with pro wrestling and all this drama happening in Georgia wrestling is that at the end of the day, nothing comes of it. And I don't just mean drawing money. I don't mean just drawing money. I mean, and this is how I'm going to end it, and this is going to surprise you. This is a swerve, if you will. Are people going to learn? Are people going to become better people throughout the drama. A movie is only a good movie. A novel is only a good novel. And nowadays, with television having gotten better, television back in the day used to be the same people who never changed, that would just get put in different scenarios. This is the episode about blank, and this is the episode about blank. But the characters never evolved or changed. Nowadays, you know why television is better now? Because characters are expected to evolve and change. Yeah. That's it in a nutshell, folks. Because that gives writers some place to take story arcs. Does it always work? No. But if characters never change, greatness cannot be achieved. And that's what I'm saying to the people who are involved in fucking indie wrestling, Georgia drama. There's always been drama. The question is, do you come out of it on the other side a better person? From witnessing it, are you analyzing what's going on and applying the lessons to yourself? Or are you just saying, I'm already above it? There's no growth there to say you're already above it. You think it's an indication and symptomatic of your growth that you've evolved beyond it. But the truth is, you probably haven't. Perhaps you have, though. I'll allow that. And if you're involved in these dramatic things, how do you come out of it better on the other side? Because if you're not doing that, then you're not growing as a person. And if you're not growing as a person, chances are that you can't cause growth in the activities that you're a part of. We're involved in pro wrestling because we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. But that thing that is bigger than ourselves, meaning pro wrestling as a whole, your groups specifically, all bigger than you, you have to acknowledge the bad as well as the good. You can't pretend the bad doesn't exist or pretend that you're above that. The reason people call pro wrestling fake as an insult is because it is. Its tradition started with conning people out of their money, and that continued through the Gorgeous George era, and that continued through the 60s and 70s, when, by the way, wrestling was fucking better, incidentally. On through the 80s when it started to transform, and then the 90s and beyond, where now we're supposed to forgive wrestling sins and pretend it never was this con job, or pretending that they're above it now. But are they? Or maybe the con has simply evolved, but wrestling people at the smaller levels in their thinking have not evolved. Because if you think the WWE is not playing a con game on some level, then you are the one being worked. If you think the drama between put it this way, the dumbest pro wrestling people can only see AEW and WWE in two ways. They're in it together. They're working in conjunction with each other. That's the simplicity and the stupidity of the average pro wrestling person. Do you want to be the average pro wrestling person? You shouldn't be. Or the smarter people who go, there's a nuance here. Yes, there's a conflict there. But there's a reason AEW constantly brings up WWE in their shows. And that reason isn't as simple as they genuinely hate WWE and they're attacking them. And it's not as simple as they're working together to create drama. It's something more nuanced and complicated than that. But you know what it all stems from? At the end of the day, Samson, the plant, and taking people's money by garnering attention, by wearing fancy costumes, by using fancy moves. But at the end of the day, it's about tricking, on some level, people out of their money. Pro wrestling is not simply building a better mousetrap and then having people buy the mousetrap because it fulfills a need. Pro wrestling is about fulfilling a want. And whenever you're in the business of fulfilling somebody's want versus fulfilling somebody's need, there's an element of the con going on. Sugary kids' cereals are not a need. They are a want. And in order to sell that want to you, they have to make it colorful and filled with sugar and put it on the low part of the shelf so kids see it and maybe they'll grab it and put it into the cart without mom and dad knowing. These are all real things, folks. How is that different than Samson pretending to wrestle with the plant for a while before barely throwing him out in time in order to get other people to give them their money? There is no difference. Don't act like you're above the fray. You're a pro wrestling person. You're in this shit. Yeah? Don't turn your nose up at other activities like ballet. Don't talk about them derisively. Embrace what they are. Find the greatness in them and try to embody them. That would probably do you a lot more good than pretending you're better than something you're not better than. And finally, wrestling is fake. So what are you going to do about it? And how are you going to use that to your advantage? How are you going to make something real out of something fake? That's the game. This has been Full Disclosure.